Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, a couple of forests to get trimmed up a little bit and a couple of pruning shears put to the test. Welcome everyone, just outside the passive solar green frame on a gray day, another system coming through. We had a deluge of rain yesterday, the day before that. It continues. Interesting weather fact just came out. We had 5 days of sun without any rain showers. That was the first 5-day stretch since May, over 2 months, where we never went more than 3 or 4 days without some rain. It continues. And we continue working on some trees. So this is pre-road trip pruning. I only have a few more days before the big road trip out east, the bonsai road trip, and going to see a whole bunch of friends and talk bonsai. But before we do that, I want to tidy up a few more things. And one of the things I want to do is work on my dawn redwood forest. Now this is new to me again from our friend Candace. Yes, I hit the jackpot when my friend Candace said, "Hey Dave, I just can't take care of these trees anymore. And I need something to happen now." And I met up with her and I was able to get a bunch of trees. I've given some away, I'm giving more away this year, and a couple of them I'm keeping. And the dawn redwood is one of the ones I'm keeping. And this is the dawn redwood forest that had about 9 trees in it, and we currently are down to 6. So we did lose 2 or 3 since I've received this tree. A couple in transitions were bumped, knocked, and so they've perished. So we're going to talk about the dawn redwood, then we're going to go over a little bit later and do the birch clump forest on the slab. We're also today though going to talk about a couple of Kiri style Roshi tools. So I get a lot of my tools from Stone Lantern. Now when you go to stonelantern.com and check out all their tools and wonderful things, I buy wire from them and I buy my tools from Stone Lantern. I'm not getting any pushback or money for any of this. It's just a fair and a nice test for some new tools that I recently bought. I really love the Roshi style tools, and the Roshi, R-O-S-H-I, I believe, tools, and this is the Kiri style, have fit my hands really, really well, and they've been very good tools, very strong. Just remember when you're using a tool like this, and you get into a thick branch and it's not cutting very well, don't force it, because they do bend. And they can lose their ability to be really nice and precise. And so get those concave cutters, the bigger size, and use the tools correctly. I've bent a few of these, which is the reason why I bought 2 new ones. Now, when I was shopping on Prime Day, like the rest of the world, I also looked at Stone Lantern to see if they had any deals, and of course they did. So a hint about Stone Lantern, make sure you're buying things when they're on sale. They're hardly ever full price. If you've ever shopped in the upper Midwest at a store called Kohl's, department store, that there's never anything that's full price. It always says it's marked 20, 30, 40% off. That's how they get you in the store. Stone Lantern has their tools on sale, their wire on sale quite often, so don't ever pay full price. But visit their website often so you know kind of what the full price is. So we have tools to look at as we work today, so let's compare those. Now I have a picture of the prices I paid for the 3 tools I bought. I bought a stainless variety of Roshi, and I bought this one that doesn't say stainless in the description. So one is the more silvery gray stainless, and this one's not. So the price difference, so this guy right here was on sale for like 60% off during the Prime days a couple of days ago. This one I got for a little over 17 bucks. This one I got, I think, for a little over $30. I don't have the prices right in front of me, but I'll put a flash on the screen there for you. A little over 17 bucks. A little over 30 bucks. Now, normally this one's 44. Right now, as of today, when I went to go look at the research for this tool for this episode, this is on sale for half price at $22. So it's a $44 tool that I got for 17.5 bucks. And this one is the stainless one that's in the 30s, normally 58 bucks, I think, or something like that, and I got it for the 30s. Both good tools. They look almost identical side by side. They look like the same tool. This one feels a little sturdier and has a little bit slightly bigger blade, possibly in the millimeter range. I mean, really, really slight. we're going to use these tools today on both forests and just see what I think at the end. Again, Roshi tools, the Kiri style, stainless versus not stainless, 17.5 bucks or so and 35 or so bucks. Again, we'll show that on the screen. So as you work on a dawn redwood tree, there are some pruning tips that I want you to think about. And I'm not going to remember them all because it's a new species to me, but go check out a couple of videos. So my friend Candace, who gave me this tree, gave a good top 5 pruning musts you've got to follow, or you can kind of wreck your trees. And have things that die off and you're like, what? I pruned it like I pruned all my other trees. So check out the link in the description below for Candace's 5 points to pruning a dawn redwood. And then check out Steve from Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Steve talks about the Candace tips, and he does his trees as well. A couple of great resource videos to go check out besides what I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm only going to do one major thing today with this dawn redwood forest, and that's the tips. The apex of these trees, if someone cut this last year and all of a sudden they start to grow new apexes, they'll grow multiple branches. So this is a perfect example right here of the tip of this guy was cut by me probably earlier in the spring, and it shot up 2 straight up and down branches. Oh, look at that. We have a Japanese beetle that decimate all our trees. 2. We only want one of them, so we're going to cut one off. Let's get the cheaper of the 2 tools, come on in here and say, well, since this is a forest and we don't like branches growing inside to block other trees, and this tree in the back is on this side, I'm going to cut this side off of this tip right here. Ooh, that was nice and clean. That scissors felt really good. I'll cut that one off. That leaves this side for this tree to grow now, so it'll have a little bit of a swerve that way, and then it's not going to block this one, and it's not going to block back there. So I just cut off the tip there. I can clean up the tip a little bit more there. Nice and clean. So when you have the tips growing up like this, we're going to pick one of them. And you can cut those at any time if I'm remembering correctly. We just want to pick one of the 2 tips. Now I had 2 tips growing very strongly. Now we just have one. So we're going to do that on the other parts of the tree. So this one back here, same thing. And now again, I've got a tip here and a tip here. This one's in between these 2, and I want this outside growth on this one as well. So we're going to cut this side off right there. And now I have my 2 tips from the front. This is off to the left, this is in the front center, and this is off to the back. And now the back tree right there has 2 tips as well. And I think I'm going to keep that right one, which is going to compete with this massive one. But we still have 2 trees that are behind this one looking pretty good as far as this one's concerned. And this is just the big monster tree. Now this did have 2 at one point as well, but that one's been cut off. And look at that growth since this spring, just massive. And now we want our trees to stay relatively small, so we're gonna have to cut back some of those as well. This front tree has 1 tip, we're good. This back tree has 2 tips. It also has 2 branches over here growing up like it's a second set of tips. But here we go. We've got my left, my right, your left, your right. And again, if this is the forest over here, either one of these would work. So I'm going to pick the one that looks best, and I think it's the one off to the back. We're going to cut that one off. So my trees in this forest are trimmed as far as the top. And that's all I really wanted to do today. Unless there's a couple of really obvious branches that I don't want in here, I could go through and trim some of those off as well. So that was all with the black scissors, the pruning scissors, and felt really good, very clean cuts. It feels powerful enough. Again, weight-wise, they're very similar. This one might be a tad lighter than the other one. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to use the stainless variety, and we're going to prune a couple more branches. Now, that was one tip as far as working with dawn redwoods, is getting rid of the apexes or the tips. Now, the other tip that she gave that was super, super important, if I go in here and if I just cut this off right here, this whole branch will die unless we've gotten some hardening off, some if it's lignified or hardened off and started to turn the reddish color of a dawn redwood. So we've got the reddish color down below there. When the branch gets old enough and starts to show that reddish color, It's ready to set some buds for the next year's growth. If you cut these branches before you see the red and it's just the light green, real supple new growth, and it's not lignified at all, it's not reddish, we don't want to prune them. If you do, that whole branch is going to be, as Candace said, just a stick sitting there. And she shows some of the sticks on hers on this forest that she ended up just cutting off because she cut these too early. Now, none of these with my eyes from here on up are quite, you know, this one certainly has a little bit of color change in here, but I'm still a little bit nervous of cutting those. So for this forest, for this year, my first year growing it in my backyard, I'm okay just leaving it. So the only thing I would do now is to see if there's anything that I could remotely do to trim this guy up and cut some branches off to thin it out a little bit. And these would be branches we just don't need. And it's so thick right now, it's kind of hard to see. But like this guy right here, oh, there's another Japanese beetle. Got to get rid of him. I don't know why they're coming to the dawn redwoods. They're such skinny leaves, foliage, but they seem to be hungry for something new. They usually get my raspberry bushes. So when I've got branches sticking out like this, like right here, I don't know. Now this one has lignified. This is lignified down to here. This actually splits down here into many, many different branches, but this one goes straight up in the air. So I'm actually going to cut the whole branch off. And opens up the bottom of my forest here. And this branch is still viable here. It's got some new growth. Cut off an old stub right there. And then we've got that. Now there's a branch right above it trying to grow in its place. I'm going to cut that off too. Now I can see in my forest, I can see the bottom of the trunk, and I can actually see some trunk here, which is nice, then trunk up here. We want to see some trunk. I think it makes it look a little bit more natural, like it's not going to be just one huge plume of foliage. So again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this tree. I just wanted to trim a couple and try out the new scissors. Like this one's coming right at us as well. I'm just going to cut that whole one off right there. This one's a little bit in our face, pokey too, but it's also going to the left. I don't know that it's completely lignified to my satisfaction, so I'm going to leave it alone for right now. A couple more on this tree. Now this one right here has definitely lignified right here. If this is all new growth this year, that right there, that's all lignified. That's getting hardened off, different color. Then it splits up here. It divides real nice. We have ramification. It's splitting into two. So that was one of the other tips, the third tips from Candace. Not only is it lignified, we've cut the tips. Not only is the branch lignified, but then it's also starting to bifurcate. It's starting to split into our ramification. If it's splitting, we know that this branch here is solid and this branch is going to be good for the future. Now, if I cut these branches here, I can trim these now, but this part of the branch will stay alive, and what I don't know is how much of this will stay alive, or will it die back to the lignified section. That's going to come with experience as I trim some of these. So as an experiment, we'll trim that one right there and this one right there, just as an experiment. So as I peek in a couple of these parts of the tree, that's super, super thick in here, I want to thin this out just a tad. This is kind of becoming a cathedral branch right here, super tall and robust, real thick in here. I'm just going to cut that back right there. And that just gave some air in here. And you can see this tree has split really heavily into these two branches right up here. That's a really big branch right there. Now it has lignified down below and it's split off into many sections. We're going to cut this little one. It's growing back in on the tree. See, now this one has it lignified. This one hasn't turned red at all, so I can't cut that one. Here's one of the old death points right there. Can we see that branch right there by the scissors tip? But that died. But these do back bud pretty good. Look at that, back bud there, back bud behind it, and this one lower and that one lower. There's so much branches to take its place that it's not a terrible thing. So what do I want to do with that? I've got this split pretty high in the tree. I don't know if I like that split going straight up like that. It's a pretty thick branch, but we want branches to be thicker on the bottom of the trees, not the top. So as I cipher through this, let's get rid of this one. There we go. And then we have this. Now again, the branch down below has lignified. So if I cut this one off and cut it shorter, Cut this one off. We're letting that be the main tree. This hasn't lignified yet. This one has back here, so I can go ahead and trim some of these shorter because I don't want that length there. Okay, so I got rid of that kind of double. We just have a single tree again instead of that double right there. And these are just gonna be more branches that are gonna come out eventually. And we got so much branching in here. It is so thick, so we will thin this out. But you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna look at this tree in the fall and after leaf drop. We're gonna see if we can trim this one in the late fall or spring. How does this scissors feel in my hand? This one does feel just slightly heavier, slightly more beef to it, robust. Feels really good. They both feel good. Let's move on to the next forest and we'll continue testing out the Roshi tools. More Japanese beetles. Now they're getting over to the birch tree. That does not make me happy. I have not treated for the Japanese beetles in my yard yet, but I think I have to do that. They are starting to get too many of my bonsai trees. Now typically they stick with the raspberry bushes through the early part of their season and then they start feeding out. And you can see right here, look at that holy leaf right there. That is all from Japanese beetles. Now this is my birch forest. I've got the birch forest that has the one side over here that look completely died off. So this tree has died off. I'm not sure why. If I go ahead and, yeah, I mean, it's got a little green in there, but I think this one's gonna be a goner. So we're gonna have to just let that one age out. It might turn a little bit more white, but I don't know as birch die if that's gonna change any more color, probably not. This one in the back passed away this past year as well. So we still have the 3 suckers and the 2 original that are still alive. So we have a 5 clump. This was 6 and 7, but those will just have to be, maybe I'll do I'll cut it back and crack it off and look like it just, you know, died away and fell over. This one back here I think we'll take out completely at some point, but again, we'll wait until we put that away for the season. I got all my tea bags on there. We've kept the maple trees pretty short back here and they're looking real nice and kind of full now, and they'll continue to grow. So another thing I wanted to highlight in this video is I just watched a great video from Andrew Robson, who was in town with the Minnesota Bonsai Society just a few weeks ago. And he has a great new video on his channel now. So I always hesitate to say his name. It's Rakuyo's Deciduous Bonsai channel. So check out Andrew Robson's channel. That link will be in the description too. And it's a great short video on deciduous pruning. When do you stop pruning deciduous trees? Now he works on a different tree than what I'm working on, but in general with deciduous trees. Now this is one thing I have to ask him about his video and I have to post a question to him. The tree that he was working on was way more ramified than mine. So in this young forest, do I just want to let it grow all season? Probably to thicken up. But as the trees get more ramified and you're trying to keep them more into a shape, I think that's what his tree and that's what he's thinking more of, is when you have a tree that's more ramified and ready to go, your last prune, or in general, your last prune of the year should be around for him the first week in August. For us, it might be the last week of July because we get colder sooner than he does up in the Pacific Northwest. But what he's saying is about 8 weeks, 2 months after this last prune, that's enough time for a little bit more growth, a little more buds to push out, and you're gonna have that final swell a little bit before the fall and all the leaves start changing colors and falling off for your winter dormancy. So, this is the end of July as I get ready for my road trip, so I'm going to cut a few branches off here. And you can see this tree has taken off super, super lovely. I'm just so happy. And I'm not going to cut it that much shorter because I just want to make sure that this thing stays healthy through next year with some of the death that I had on these trees this year. So, and I'm probably going to attempt a repot next year on this slab. I'm going to take this off, reposition things with the depth that I had and see if I can come up with a better composition if I'm not liking it. But here, just like with the Dawn Redwood, look, I have 2 branches that are taking over for this tree. Here was the cut point right here. I can go ahead and cut that off. All right, that branch was good for this scissors. And now we've got 2 branches there. I'm going to keep the inner one, not the outer one. So we're going to cut that off right there. Now I have 1 stalk up there, and because it's a little tall, we'll cut it off here and keep it going that way a little bit. We have a nice split here, beautiful ramification on the branch down lower on this tree. We're going to again go ahead and just give it a little bit of a trim back here and trim back here, just a little bit. I don't mind leaving the rest of that on here. And this is some growth from the branch behind it. Cut a little stub off, it's subdivided. I'm just going to leave the rest of this where it's at. This tree is just fine. And you can see my new height of my forest probably is going to be somewhere in here. Okay, using the black Roshi. This is the cheap $18 one, 17.5 bucks. Now, so for this back tree, it's going to be hard for you all to see. When I'm on a slab like this, I can't move my trees around too much. But back there, it's a really squiggly trunk. Really, really wild design. Now, this doesn't look as natural in a forest to have that great big curl. And that's the old branch, and this is the new one. It grew up in the cracks between this one and this kind of a primary branch. So I'm considering maybe taking this one off right now. But now that branch is too thick for this scissors. I don't want to bend a brand new pair of scissors. So I might come back with a different scissors in a moment, the concaves, and cut that off. And so if I keep this one, we're just going to go ahead and cut it down to that size. We'll come back to that tree. Now this tree in the middle, this thing has really thickened up this year. And as you can see, there's growth down below, but this is not getting much light. Here's another sucker coming up yet again here this summer, 2 of them back here. We could have a really thick birch forest, but these aren't going to get light. They're going to be long and leggy and reach up like these did off through the cracks. But with this one dying and we get more light in here, this could have a chance down here. But this isn't getting much light, but here is all of a sudden the growth of this tree. Now again, we're going to cut this back to there. We'll cut this one back to here, just getting those shorter in the foreground. There's still kind of those eye pokers, but remember, this is a forest, not a bonsai, so we have a lot of composition to look for, so I'm not worried about these kind of coming out at me at the moment. There's an old stub. I'll need a concave to cut that. And look, we have this beautiful branch. This is all this year's growth, everybody. This is almost 2 feet. And again, we're just going to go ahead, we're going to cut it shorter right there, maybe one more down to here for that beautiful back branch, and this one right here. That'll be a beautiful split right in there. Now this branch on this same tree, do I want that split that high in the tree? Maybe for one more year. So we'll cut it back. We'll cut it shorter than this one so it slows down. There we go. And I'll cut even maybe this branch just a little bit shorter and this branch just a little bit shorter. And there's my apex right there. We got this forest coming this way. And I'm just going to leave these tips for the moment. Now, from that branch, it has this big side branch over here, and this is lignified way out to here. Let's cut that off. And I don't know that I need to do anything else with that tree. Now there's a birch tree in the back, way back here. You're not going to see that one, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time other than we're just going to wait. Too hard to explain. This one's coming from way inside. Let's just cut this branch all the way off. And now we've cleaned up the look just a little bit. But that's all I want to do. Now I used my inexpensive shears. I didn't use the thicker ones, the $38 one. Is there anything else left I could trim? The maples here, this is also deciduous, of course, if I want one more push. Well, certainly I can cut off the tips from the last time we did this. This tree's looking pretty good. I'm not minding where it's at. I don't know that I want to cut any shorter. We'll cut this one off right here. Got 2 new buds right there below me. We'll let those grow. These ones in the back are looking fine. This one on the inside gets the least amount of light, so it's spreading out leaves in a couple different directions, trying to fill up that area. But we're just going to leave it alone. Okay, any more tips I can cut off? Well, we're going to cut off that big chunky one, like I said, so let's cut off this branch to use this pruner. Yeah, nice and clean. Okay, so again, behind here was one of the original suckers that just had this really fun, gnarly curve to it. But I think the way it's growing and how thick this is getting, we're going to go ahead and come in here and get rid of that with this big concave cutter. Right there. So see, it had that kind of bendy look to it. And now, look at that tree behind it. It's going to go up, and it keeps going up tall, and this is the new part of the tree. We do have one side branch here that's still alive, and that's really nice. And we'll make sure that that one continues to get some light and has some growth on it. All right. Wonderful. We've got 2 more trees trimmed up before the road trip. We've got the birch forest all good and tidied up. I was able to do a lot on today's show. We compared a couple of tools. They're both phenomenal. This one's a little bit thicker, and it was the more spendy one. This was the cheaper one, but a wonderful scissors, wonderful pruning shears for 17.5 bucks, even if I paid 22 for this. So a lot of people in the club ask, where do you get your tools and what do you buy? I do like the Roshi brand. They've been good tools. They've lasted a long time. They're good and sturdy. And again, just don't overcut. Don't cut branches that are too big. Get the next size up. Get the a little bit higher quality one maybe for the bigger branches, and make sure you have a good set of the, again, Roshi tool, the 8-inch concave cutter. This 8-incher is going to cut through a lot of thick trunks, a lot of branches. So which one would I recommend? Either or, depends on what you want to spend, but if you want to spend under 20 bucks, this would be a great tool. Any starter in bonsai, this is a really great tool for $20, and in this case, 17 plus. This one for in the 30s, a super good tool. They both feel great in my hands, and this one, of course, will get thicker trunks. So, don't cut your deciduous trees too much after the first part of August here, because we want 2 full months for one last kind of push, some buds to set for next year, and then we'll be in good shape. And then you can trim them in the late fall or early spring after all the leaves fall, and you can see some branches better. But we just cut this back down to style a little bit. Check out Andrew's video on his Rakuyo's Deciduous Bonsai channel. Check out that, and check out the Candace episode and the Steve episode. All those links will be in the description for the Dawn Redwood. Hey, that's going to wrap it up. The rain is on our doorstep again. Great tools. The trees are looking pretty darn good, and I am this much closer to a road trip. This much closer. Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very soon on the next one, everyone.